Hello everyone. I thought I'd show you my Perusa i3 3D printer and some of the experience I've had using it. This is a self-build kit from China. It's about £170 or thereabouts. It's full self-assembly and it takes about 6-8 hours to put together. It works pretty good now after about a week's worth of messing about. I just couldn't get it to print any decent quality prints. Well, that's not true. It printed the first one really well and then went to pieces very quickly after that. And it took me a week to work out why, really. As you can see, I'm zooming in there on some 3D spools that I've made. I recommend they are the first thing you make for a printer. The spool really needs to run smoothly. If you don't do this, you'll find that the filament drags and you have all kinds of issues with lines and ripples on the print itself. At the moment it's printing a little test run. It's making a egg cup thing. It's not very good quality, but it's on reasonably quick print. It takes about 20 minutes to do it. So anyway, back to my experiences. Oh, as you can see, the print head there, the hot end as they call it, I've printed a new fan surround for it, for the exhaust fan. The idea is that it cools the plastic as the print head zooms up and down, which should help when it's doing filling gaps and things. These are some of the examples I've done. That one I'm picking up there, the small one, for some reason, which it took me the longest time to work out, it would only print at half height. So anything that was, say, 100mm tall would only come out 50mm or 45mm tall. So everything was squat. And it took me quite a while to work out that it's basically the calibration of the printer. It's all to do with the screw threads. That is the first one. I set the G-code to take into account the screw threads, and now it works fine. The quality there of the boxes varies from pretty poor up to being reasonably good. As I got the hang of it and eventually altered all the settings. There are a few little examples there. The wrench, they are Amiga 4000 hard drive brackets on the left and a little Star Wars keyring. Printed quite a few things. Many of them have gone in the bin because they're awful, but it's quite interesting. What I'm trying to do now is print tall objects. I can print small ones reasonably well. Here's a tall object. That is a 150mm Fallout 3, Fallout 4 a figure. It's the T, I'll get this wrong, T something or other, armour from Fallout. It's not printed that well, but it's a little bit raggedy, and I quite like the look of it in raggediness. But anyway, Yoda there sat on top watching what I'm doing. That prints out really reasonably well. No matter what settings you do, it comes out good. I don't know why. The power arm I will probably print again at a higher resolution just to see how good I can get it. But it takes a long time to print that. That'll be a 3-hour print, I should think. I don't know, I went to bed and left it, so anyway. But anyway, problems I've had along the way. The first thing I would recommend you doing when you buy a 3D printer is get yourself some spare nozzles. To my detriment, I found out after I'd done the first few prints that for no apparent reason the nozzle decided, or the print head decided it would hit the bed. So I'd set the level, I set the bed height, press home, it would go home, hit all the limit switches, then come back and level itself perfectly on the bed every time. I thought, great. But as soon as you press print, it would home again, come back and send the nozzle flying into the bed. Now what I had to do is, in Slicer, I put a I set the bed lower and ended up putting a -2. I set the limit switch to a higher point and put the Z-axis to -2. So now it prints perfectly, hovers above the bed. It's pretty good. You want about a 0.5mm, perhaps a little bit less gap from the nozzle to the bed. You can do this with a piece of paper, fold it over in two really, and use that as a feeler gauge from the tip the nozzle tip to the actual bed itself. Do that in all four corners with the stepper motors off, disabled, and that will give you a reasonable guide on the bed being level. You can alter it on my one with the little thumb screws and on springs. As you can see, I've also put LED lights up the side. Now this is not, it's not actually bling. It's there purely because I can't see what the hell it's printing. Because the nozzle guard's in the way, the fan guard's in the way, and when it's zooming along, on the first few prints anyway, they're so fine you can hardly tell whether it's printing or not. You may also notice I've got masking tape on there. The reason I use masking tape is, number one, that's how it came from China, and the first few prints printed beautifully. It wasn't until the nozzle was actually dragging on the bed that it damaged the masking tape and I had to peel it off. So I tried sellotape because I didn't have any masking tape, and that worked reasonably well too. But the best option I find is plain old simple masking tape, although I have ordered some blue 3D printing tape, which is just plastic tape really. So that's the nozzle bit. And the other thing to remember is you need to clean the nozzle. If the stepper motor for the hot end starts jittering or skipping or grinding big marks in the filament, but nothing's coming out the nozzle or not much, it obviously means the nozzle's blocked in some way. So you need to either take it off, ideally, put the temperature up, and put a small needle file in there, or an actual needle. I found a really thin needle that just fitted inside the 0.4 hole, which worked reasonably well. But the best option is to take it off. I put it over the gas cooker, warm it up with a pair of pliers, and clean it out, clean all the gunk out with a little file. Put it all back together, and it works really well. So that is something I might need to look at. I might do a retraction on the filament actually, so when it finishes printing it actually pulls the filament out, perhaps 4 or 5 millimeters out of the nozzle, so the heat can't melt it. But I don't know, I haven't tried that yet. The other problem I had with this printer was when it arrived, it came with the Acme lead screws, which are quite a coarse threaded 8mm. Lead screws for the Z-axis, which is up and down. Now, that's great. That's an upgrade that most people do. But I did find that the actual brass nut that's supposed to screw onto the lead screw didn't have the thread cut properly, so it wouldn't screw on. So I couldn't use it. So as a temporary measure, I got some 8mm standard metric threaded studding from work, which was, funnily enough, cut to length. I used that and a couple of M8 nuts, drop of super glue on either side of the M8 nuts, and just glued them quite lightly underneath the carriers for the Z-axis, for the X-axis rather. So now the, the Z-axis. So now it's using M8 threaded studding on the Z-axis rather than the lead screws. I have bought some proper brass nuts for the lead screws, so I may convert that back, I don't know. But this is one of the results of why I was getting squat prints, because I was using M8 studding rather than the much coarser lead screws for the Z-axis. So the printer was printing, winding the screws up on the stepper motors, but obviously the M8 is a much finer thread than the coarse lead screws. So it wasn't going up as high, so that's why I thought, that's why it's not printing or doing squat prints. So I changed it to the lead screws, put it all back together, and it was printing absolutely dreadful. It was awful, and I just couldn't get my head around why, and I needed to print something sharpish. So I converted it back to the M8 studding and printed it like that, used it like that, and it printed fine. Now I will go back to the lead screws at some point, probably in the next week or two. Now I also wanted to flash the firmware. It uses a Melzi PCB board, a controller board for all the stepper motors. It has an SD card reader built in, which is quite nice. But it's a clone. It's not a genuine Melzi thing. And whenever I try to use the Arduino software to flash it, it just won't do it. So I've left it as it is, and I've ordered the Arduino kit, if you like, board with the stepper motor drivers in there, and it's a different LCD. So I've ordered a kit from China. It's about £35 with all the gear, and I will convert it to that, and hopefully I can flash it properly. Because really, if you've got a problem with calibration, the best option is to do it in firmware. Unfortunately, I have to do it with a G-code in Slicer. That's why I've got an M, whatever it is. I'll put it in the description. An M command to give me the actual rotation speed of the M8 still. But I would like to do it in firmware so it's there forever. I don't have to use, plus you can forget, even though I've saved the configuration in Slicer, so you shouldn't forget. So that shouldn't be a problem. One of the other things I did was I put the spool on top of the printer. Why did I do this? Because one of the many problems I had was the filament juddering as it was getting fed into the hot end. So I thought, okay, I'll mount the spool on top of the printer so it's more direct, it's a free-flowing route, it should work well. And it did kind of help. But the biggest benefit I found was printing the two spool holders so they go onto the 1 kilogram reels. It sits nicely and it spins very freely. It's much better, and I really recommend you do that before you do anything else with the printer. What else have I done? That's about it. The LED lights are simply so I can see what the hell is going on. Which you will find when you're printing stuff, especially if you're printing in white and it's going onto cream coloured masking tape, you just can't see. And it does help when you're setting the bed level and so on and so forth. So I recommend doing it. The other thing I would say is when you're building these things, make sure you give yourself enough room on the cables, especially the hot end, so when it's at its lowest position levelling on the bed, it's not pulling the cables tight. Now the cables are quite long, they come from China. In fact, they're too long, you will have to cut them down. So it's not a problem, but just be wary, don't cut them too short. I left all mine quite long so I could route them nicely. I still haven't finished, I need to tighten the cables a little bit, but as I'm changing the controller board, the LCD and basically everything at some point, I'm not too concerned at the moment. Now, printing times. This is something else. Printing time. How long does it take to print something? Well, this egg cup that you're seeing here takes about, I don't know, half an hour. The Fallout 4 power armor guy, I set that going when I went to bed. I got up an hour later for a few minutes to go to the loo. So I stuck my head around the corner to see what it was doing. It just printed his shoes. So it is a long job. There's no rush. Now you can tweak it up. You can speed up the feeds and the travels. You can increase the filament speed. You can do all that. I haven't experimented too much. It's all pretty much default, except for the extruder filament speed or feed or whatever they call it in the firmware. I actually went into configuration on the LCD panel and increased the feed of the filament from, I think it was 95 to 200. Now the reason for this is that when you printed anything, it was very, how can I describe it, stringy. The layers were not adhered to each other. You could almost see through it. It was almost as though the plastic was laid on top without actually adhering to the previous layer. So I increased the filament rate, and it's made a fantastic difference. It prints really well now. There are a few issues, there are a few quality issues. I would say it prints 6 or 7 out of 10. So there is much more that can be done. This egg cup is particularly rough for some reason, I don't know why. I will have to try printing. It's printing 1.75 filament PLA, It's printing at 200 degrees, the bed is set at 50 or thereabouts. In fact, I might have set that a little high and forgot to turn it down. That's why you've got that black mark at the bottom of the egg cup, or top of the egg cup, it's upside down. So, yeah, I need to look at the bed temperatures. It only needs to be about 50. The filament, about 200. Yeah, I set it too high, that's why I can't get it off. Normally they twist off reasonably well. If you have your bed temperature too low, you will find that the parts you are printing start to move about as you're printing them. So you'll end up with things sliced in half and bits missing, or just a load of wire everywhere, a load of filament everywhere. But anyway, that's the Perusa i3 printer. It's very good, and I recommend you buy one and have a play with it. It's great fun. So tune in for some more.